Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. It is the Tuesday, June 30th, 2026 episode of The Marco Duray Show, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Folks, we made it one full year of The Marco Duray Show. Today was my launching of this program this time last year, June 30th. And I said to myself, well, it's a Monday. Might as well be a good day to start this. And it was also Dr. Thomas Sowell's birthday, one of my favorite economists of all time. Today he turns 96, if you can believe that. God bless him for that as well, and all his contributions to history and economical facts that we have now today, thanks to him. But I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to make a show where the facts are the main base of the program. This is what we're working with. We're not dealing with just narratives or talking points or feel-good articles or things that I wish were happening right now. I don't sugarcoat anything for you. And I believe that's why the show has grown so significantly today. We have thousands of views every month now. Obviously, my first day that I launched this, I had 8 people listen. And now we've got thousands of people every single month tuning in. And you know I don't do any marketing. I don't have a social media presence or anything like that promoting the show. So really, it's all word of mouth. And you, my listeners, have done a great job, and I'm so appreciative of it, that you share the show with many people and you get the word out. And every single month we get more and more viewers, more and more downloads. So I'm very, very blessed about that. And that's why I do the show. So long as I have an audience listening to the truth, listening to the facts, getting this esoteric information out there into the ether for people to listen to be a voice of reason, not pushing any stupid narratives, that's why I do the show. So thank you so much for a solid year. I appreciate you all so much. All right, now for some bad news, right? We have the good news that the show's been around for a year. It's going to continue to go on. Now we've got the bad news, and that comes from the Associated Press. Let's not waste the time today. Let's dive right into it, shall we? I knew this was coming. A divided Supreme Court on Tuesday upheld a broad conception of birthright citizenship, rejecting President Donald Trump's executive order declaring that children born to parents who are inside the United States illegally or temporarily are not American citizens. Now, obviously, to anyone with any common sense, we would listen to this and say, of course that makes sense. You have no right to be in this country. Why would your children have a right to be in this country as well? Why would they become citizens when you have gone through none of the proper channels to yourself become a naturalized citizen, a legal immigrant in this country? So why would that precedent then be granted to your children? That's the big question. That's what Trump has been saying, and we need to stop doing this. You know, even in Canada, years ago, they found that they were having an issue with Chinese mothers coming to the country. They're 8 months, 9 months pregnant, having children, and then those children were becoming Canadian citizens. And even at the time, I think it was a Chinese representative in the legislature said, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. We can't do this. And they stopped it. Somehow the United States can't seem to figure this out. And what they don't understand about, I guess the justices don't understand about the 14th Amendment is that what they're suggesting makes absolutely zero sense, even when you read the actual text. So let me read you the text first, then we'll break it down, as I have many times in the past. What they're looking at is Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. And it reads, all persons born on or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now, what they're trying to suggest, though, is that all persons born on American soil are American citizens, right? That's what they're trying to say. However, they run into a grave problem with this second part here, and are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, what does that part mean? This is the most important part about this. This is what everyone seems to be getting wrong for some reason. By the way, I don't know how John Roberts got this wrong. I mean, he went to Harvard. He's a Harvard boy, so I don't know how he didn't understand this. There are two things that make this both correct. One, you've got to be born on American soil. Okay, well, that makes sense, right? Okay, we're all agreeing that, yes, you're born on American soil. But the next part is very important as well, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So since there are two explicit requirements for this, they both cannot be met simply by just being born on American soil. Both have to take precedent. And so I can't say it any better than Congressman Stephen King, former congressman of the District of Iowa. And what he said was, the history of the drafting of the 14th Amendment makes very clear that the language subject to the jurisdiction thereof meant a citizen could not owe allegiance to any other foreign power. We talked about this in the program yesterday. So this would exclude illegal aliens. We call them illegal immigrants sometimes. I call them illegal aliens. Of course, that's what they are. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. You're either an immigrant or you're an illegal alien. And again, they are in defiance of U.S. jurisdiction and are citizens of a foreign power. So in other words, they have skipped the process of going through the immigration authorities, ICE, right, which the left loves to hate in this country. And so as a result of that, how can we sit here and say that this person is now under the jurisdiction of the United States when their parents are of a different jurisdiction? Does Chief Justice Roberts want to explain that to all of us? Because I'd love to hear his explanation for that. How anyone could cross into the country illegally and then have the child, again, who has no real rights, child can't advocate for themselves, but yet they're told that this is an American citizen. How ridiculous does this country have got to get before we turn things around? Anyways, here's what Roberts said. Listen to this. Citizenship then and now, again, he's referring back to post-Civil War, which, again, I call Lincoln's War, was the right to have rights, to freely participate in our political community. The framers of the 14th Amendment extended that promise to every free person born in this land. We keep that promise today. No, they didn't. For the simple effect of what I just told you. And subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So you have to be of this nation. You cannot be of a different nation. That doesn't make any sense. Does anyone believe the founders would agree with this? And even if you look at any of the speeches, by the way, the man who drafted the Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, John A. Bingham of Ohio, he made a very good speech called One Country, One Constitution, One People in 1866. Now, this amendment was passed in 1868, if I'm not mistaken. But the idea behind this amendment was that, yes, the slaves that were in this country, all of them, black and white, and any other race for that matter, they are now legalized citizens of this country. And as a result of that, yes, their children are also citizens as well. And as a result of that, you all have equal protection under the Constitution. That was the main part about all this. This is the big takeaway from this. Every one of them has rights, equal protection under the law. You cannot deprive them of life, liberty, and property. You have to follow due process. That's why I've told you time and time again, when Trump is sending ICE out, yes, they have to have warrants. Because, again, there has to be due process to follow through with enforcing immigration policy in this country. You can't just break down the door and say, you're not here legally. Or you can't just pull somebody off the streets. I was totally against all that. Again, go back and listen to all my shows last year when I was talking about this. Or earlier in the year. You can't do that. So I'm following the Constitution. I don't know what John Roberts or Amy Coney Barrett are following, or the three leftist justices are following. It's, again, beyond me. But you cannot get away from the language of this amendment. It doesn't say about anybody crossing over into the country illegally. Anybody that steps on American soil and has a child, that child is now a citizen. That's not what that means. And now I know John Roberts wants to be to fit in the Beltway. He wants to be invited to the cocktail parties and be seen as this great justice. Okay, whatever he wants. I could care less. He's not following the Constitution. Because what this is saying to anybody listening lets them know that, hey, as long as I get here and I have a child, my child is now a citizen. That way I have a way to stay in this country. So in other words, we call it anchor babies, if you will. And then the parents get to stay. Well, again, I'm taking the Tom Homan approach. If this is the stance that the Supreme Court is going to take, which is wrong, it's incorrect, it's unconstitutional, then we have to take the Tom Homan approach. Deport the parents then. And if the child wants to stay in the country as a citizen now, okay, but your parents are going. Everyone else you brought over from God knows where, they're going too. If that's the stance it's going to take, then yes, we have to follow through with the other promise President Trump made to us. And by the way, Trump is absolutely right about this birthright citizenship case. We have been granting citizenship to people that have no right being citizens. Again, a child cannot advocate for itself. Certainly not any other case in this country. But we have to look at the details. What are they trying to push you? What are they trying to tell the world? So long as you make it across that border and you have a child, you could stay here. Your child's a citizen now. Now you have some precedence to be here in the United States. Again, what sane country would do that? Could I go to Mexico right now with an American woman, have a child and say, yep, here we go. Here's our Mexican child. There we go. Where's our citizenship? Come on. Come on, Miss Scheinbaum. Let's go. What do you got for us? No, they would throw us right back over the border. That's how they do things in Mexico. They hadn't killed us first, by the way. But this is the way every other country seems to be working, except for the West, Canada, and the United States. And I think Canada pretty much fixed their problem with this current situation, of course. But this can't stand for, I mean, again, if this is birthright citizenship, then nothing matters. Because there is no legal precedent for it. If anyone can have it, just as long as they're here. There is no legal precedent to birthright. There is no birthright, essentially, is what they're telling us. There is no birthright. If you come here across the border illegally, from China, from Mexico, from any Canada, doesn't matter where you're from, and you and whoever you're with has a child together, that child's now a citizen? Really? Again, what would the founders say about this? They would call it an invasion, of course. They would say you're out of your damn minds. But this is completely ridiculous. It's taken totally out of context. And the part that I find the most shocking, I'd have to say, is that he says in this statement that he makes, to freely participate in our political community. You don't have a right to do that. Nor do illegal aliens have the right to do that. That's why they're called illegal aliens. So why would their child have that right? It doesn't make any sense. They are not of this jurisdiction. They are of a different jurisdiction. Their children are of a different jurisdiction. Now, I will say this. Any child born abroad to American parents, for instance, are American citizens. That makes sense. Just because the parent is serving overseas or whatnot, or working overseas, and the child's born there, they're still American citizens. Congressman Dan Crenshaw fits his narrative. He was born in Scotland, but his parents are American citizens, so therefore he is an American citizen as well. That's how it works. Now, again, most people are born on, if they're born abroad, usually they're born on American bases, considered American soil, even if they're born, for instance, I had a friend of mine who was born in Germany, but his parents were serving in the military. And of course, yes, he is an American citizen despite being born in Germany because of his parents' status. Their jurisdiction is in the United States. Therefore, their children have that birthright citizenship here in the United States. So they are American citizens. But someone who has no jurisdiction being in the United States, who has come in illegally, who has defied immigration policy, is allowed to have an American child? That makes no sense. By the way, Justice Clarence Thomas agrees with me on this, of course. Or maybe I agree with him. Either way, it doesn't matter. And what he said was a scathing review of what was followed. He said the court today takes the extraordinary step of holding facially unconstitutional the president's order excluding from citizenship the children of foreign temporary visitors, that's a nice way to put it, by the way, and illegal aliens. And in doing so, the court adds to the sad history of the 14th Amendment, which was designed and understood to secure equal rights for the freed blacks, and by the way, I'll just say all slaves, because again, not every single slave was simply just black. I know we like to say that, and I know that was probably the majority of slaves in the country at the time. But yes, anyone who was a slave in indentured servitude, yes, you are free. You have equal rights under the law. But has instead been repurposed for political projects that the Reconstruction Congress did not support. Absolutely, 100%. He's absolutely right about this. And isn't it interesting? We had, again, pretty much on party lines. Again, this is a 5-4 decision. But how is it we have such a vast difference about what the text actually says? That's the part to me that doesn't make any bit of any sense. How could Clarence Thomas come to this conclusion, and John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett and the three nincompoops on the left come to a completely different conclusion on the actual text of this language in this amendment? Again, it doesn't make any sense unless you are voting on partisan lines. Again, the ones on the left know that, hey, we keep these people in the country, they keep voting for us, we keep getting power, we stay in power. My party's happy, I'm happy, I look so nice, don't I? I'm altruistic. Other nonsense that people want. Again, John Roberts wants to be liked. That's what it comes down to. He wants to be liked as a Supreme Court justice, as a Chief Justice. But he's not following the actual language of the Constitution. That's why we need originalists on the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett is not a originalist, even though she was sold to us as that. Which, by the way, at the time I was screaming that she was not. No one seemed to listen to me. Oh my God. When she was getting nominated, I said, this is terrible. This is going to be a complete mess. And by the way, she was just a pick from Mitch McConnell, by the way, of the Federalist Society pick, of which he chose, and Trump went along with it. But all this is a bunch of nonsense, which she does. This is a woman who voted for Pete Buttigieg for mayor of South Bend when she was living there. This is a woman who sided with J.B. Pritzker when he still is governor, but as governor when he was doing these draconian COVID lockdowns. She sided with him. Several other cases of which we on the right do not agree with. She was siding with the left. And I said, how is she an originalist? What indicates this woman is going to be in the next Scalia? Oh, because she clerked for him. So everyone got excited. Oh, and she's a Catholic. Again, she does not follow the Constitution. She does not have the temperament to follow the Constitution, this woman. Sadly enough, even though, again, she was sold to us as probably doing so. She's no Scalia. She's no Thomas. She's not an Alito. And I'm glad to see that Gorsuch and Kavanaugh sided correctly on this case. So where do we go from here, though? That's the next step. So we've got this new ruling, wrong as I believe it. Where do we go from here, though? That's the next thing you have to ask. Where do we go from here, though? What do we do? Well, he's got to ramp up the deportations. So, okay, your child's here. All right, fine, your child's a citizen. You are not a citizen, though, so therefore you are deported. Your child can either stay here in the country, of which apparently they're now a citizen on their own accord. I guess in the womb, all of a sudden, they made the decision that, yes, they want to be born inside the United States. That's why the parents must have come, because they knew their child wanted to be an American citizen, not of the country of origin of their parents. So let's say this. You deport the parents, does the child go with the parents? And absolutely. That's how you solve the problem, if you're going to have such idiotic rulings from the Supreme Court. Because the parents have no jurisdiction here. Certainly, I think they would agree with that, right? Hopefully. You can only hope so. So that's the way you've got to go about this. Deport the parents then, and if the children want to stay in the U.S., if they're adults, I guess they would stay in the country if they wanted to be here. But this whole DACA nonsense, the Dreamers nonsense, again, this is how you get around this. Okay, well, fine, your parents are going to be leaving. Your parents are going. If you'd like to be with your parents, again, Tom Homan said this as well. He goes, well, the children go with the parents then. If that's going to be the case. Or they could stay here. I don't know. This is how you have to win the position. You still follow immigration law. You follow due process. You deport the parents. And the parents are either going to say, okay, well, my kid's 12. They're obviously going to have to come with me. Unless they want to be wards of the state. I don't know how they would pan that out. But again, you're not coming back in the country. And I want to make that very clear, too, by the way. Trump needs to make this very clear. If you are caught as illegal aliens, you are never coming back into the country ever again. So you're not coming to visit. You're not coming to apply for citizenship. You're not applying for anything. You're done. You are over. You are never stepping foot in the United States ever again. You have broken the law. If your kid wants to come visit or move here when they turn 18, okay, fine. I guess that's going to be the precedent now. Again, I would continue to fight this, of course. And I think that they made great arguments, too, during this ruling, except we do not have honest justices. Again, if I could read this, again, I'm not a lawyer. I can read this and I can interpret the language of this. It's very clear. It's not difficult. Then, again, I don't know how the 9 justices cannot figure this out themselves. Again, I find it very, very troubling. We have partisan hacks sitting on the court, which shouldn't be political, by the way. And by the way, Trump is absolutely right about all this. So that's the step I would take. I would say, okay, we've got to continue on now. We've got to move forward. Okay, fine. We're going to deport parents of these illegal aliens who apparently have an American citizen child somehow. And you're going to have to take your child with you. There you go. That's how it works. That's the step you've got to take. You have to make it so it's not worth it for them. But it's only worth it if you can say, well, my child's an American citizen. I got to stay here with my child. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. A country cannot survive like this, ladies and gentlemen. Not by a long shot. And by the way, we're getting so much of this buyer's remorse of Coney Barrett. This comes from the Washington Examiner. And Barrett, again, I told you before, we should have gone with Barbara Lagoa. She would have been a fantastic Supreme Court pick. Again, the powers that be did not vet her properly. Referring to Barrett, of course. But we would have been in a much different situation. All we needed was one extra vote. Now, again, Roberts can be good on some cases. Other cases, he'll be awful like this one. But we needed a solid pick. And that would have been a Barbara Lagoa. So Trump would have had exactly what he wanted, and rightfully so, had we not picked Amy Coney Barrett. Or Bonehead Barrett, whatever you want to call her. Again, she's a hack. That's all she is, a hack. She's a leftist pretending to be a conservative. Again, a Mitch McConnell pick, really? And you're shocked she's voting against you a lot of the time? Well, look at this. The two, just, again, earlier last week. Look what they did earlier this week. Again, Monday, they decided to affirm Mississippi's election law allowing mail-in ballots to be counted up to 5 days after Election Day, which, again, we know is, again, opening up the ability for fraud. And Trump is saying, look what's going on here. Look, you could just show up with ballots days after the election? Now, if you're going to have a mail-in ballot system, again, I think you should request the ballot, but I think you should have it in by Election Day. I don't think we should have trucks showing up, mail trucks showing up, saying, oh, yeah, by the way, we found these. Have fun counting them. And then for some reason, they always favor the candidates they want. Look no further than the LA mayoral race. It's all right there. Yet somehow Barrett decided, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea. Yes, great idea. Great idea to have ballots coming in weeks after and counting them in a race that should be well known on the day of the election. Again, we're not seeing that. So again, her and Roberts flip when it's convenient for them, of course. When it helps out, of course, the Democrats. And we never have the 3 justices on the left, of course, side with the Republicans on very, very partisan-based issues. Now, it shouldn't be a partisan issue. We should be going based on the Constitution. But again, we're not seeing that. But I will say one thing in this article that they do talk about. They talk about the Liberation Day tariffs, which, again, she specifically opposed major components of the president's platform. She was actually right on this one. She actually was right because, again, the IEPA program, which Trump used, does not allow the president, first of all, under any circumstance, emergency or otherwise, to issue tariffs on his own. It's not a part of that 1977 legislation. So Trump was wrong to go that route. So she was actually right on that. And by the way, Congress is set to make all of the tariffs, the taxation, the duties collected, the levy fees, and all that other nonsense That comes from Congress. It doesn't come from the president. So when Trump was getting up one day and saying, you know what, we're going to have a 125% tariff on Chinese goods, you can't do that. It's not the president's job to do that. It has to be legislation, again, signed and passed by both chambers of the Congress, and then it goes to the president to be signed. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's what's constitutional. There was no precedent for this emergency authorization to pass this, and then just make up your own tariffs as you go along. So she was right. Trump was obviously upset about it. But she was absolutely right about that one. So I'll give her that one. I'll give her that one. She was good on that one. But a lot of these other cases, she's been a complete mess. She's been absolutely a complete mess. And again, if you had a Barbara Lagoa, you wouldn't have these problems. And if to make my point much more clear, I was going to go over this with you yesterday, and I think it's great that I saved it and I won't go over it today. John Roberts talks about being a part of the political community, right? Having a say, right? It's very, very important. Immigrants have a say in what's going on, right? Wrong. Look at this article out of the Federalist. It says immigration accounts for as much as 40% of U.S. rent increases as housing affordability crisis continues to plague millions of Americans. Now, what's an American? We don't even know because they've totally just slashed what a citizen means. I mean, if anyone could just cross the border and have a child and they're a citizen, what the hell does being a citizen even mean? That's what we have to ask ourselves. What is a citizen? It can be anybody, apparently. You can be here illegally, and I guess you have a way in. And apparently they don't mind if people vote, right? That's another problem we find ourselves in here. But imagine this, and I've said this to you in the past. I said, when you have at least 100 million people that are in this country that have no right to be in this country. By the way, Greg Bovino has also said exactly what I've been saying, by the way. Again, if you look at the data, there's about 55 million people here on expired visa. That could be a student visa, could be a work visa, and they remain in the country. They have not gone back to their country of origin. And then on top of that, you also have illegal aliens. We know that there was roughly about 25-ish million illegal aliens, so that's probably a conservative figure, before Joe Biden took office. And we know that he's let in at least 12 to 20 million illegals in this country. So I want you to think about that for a second. Let's say there was the low end 25 million, okay? Let's say, for instance, he let in 20 million, which is probably the more correct figure. Let's say he did that. So that means there's 45 million people that have no right to be in this country, on top of the other 55 million that, again, have no right to be in this country. That's almost a third of the population that has no right to be in this country, that's taking up housing, it's taking up health care, it's taking up spots in education, it's taking jobs, of which, again, they should not have. And it's also, again, putting this strain on the housing market. So we don't have a housing problem. We have an illegal alien and, I guess, expired visa problem in this country. Anyways, this study that they've done, this is what's called the, what is it called here? What's the name? It is called the Puma-based spatial analysis. It's going to be in Cityscape magazine this fall. And the research was conducted by Dr. Richwine. And again, he's a resident scholar at the Center for Immigration Studies. Now, what did he find? The measurement included the migration accounts for both legal and illegal aliens. Again, legal immigrants, that's the term, and illegal aliens. So I corrected him a little bit there. Although he noted that the exact number of each within that percentage is hard to quantify, as the word immigrant has become a gray area. Well, no kidding, because, again, SCOTUS hasn't ruled accordingly. So you have children who are born here of illegal aliens who have no right to be here, and they're said, oh, well, this is a citizen now. Again, we get all these gray zones as a result of this. But here we go. Here's the startling data we're figuring out now. And again, it mirrors everything I've been telling you. Since 2020, home prices have increased by 54% nationwide and more than 50% in 73 of the country's 100 largest metro areas. But again, because this is where they're all going. Sanctuary city and a sanctuary state, so a blue city and a blue state, this is where they go to reside. They're not going to be hassled by the local police. You have the state officials who are violating the federal immigration law statutes. Again, look no further than Gavin Newsom, among one of the other blue states in this country. Well, look what he does. You're fine if you're in LA. You're fine if you're in San Fran Schmucko or in Sacramento. And if you, again, stay here, have kids with other illegal aliens, your kids are now citizens. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice how the process works? And then they put a strain on the education system. They put a strain on healthcare. They put a strain on housing, availability to get food, all these things that should be going to you, the citizen, are going to everyone because, hey, they got here. So just as long as you cross that southern border, you got here, you're in here. You're not going anywhere. And if for some reason SCOTUS has allowed this to take place as well, when you have elected officials who swear an oath to this same Constitution, as the president, as does Congress, violating their oath of office by making sanctuary cities and sanctuary state policies, which, again, go against everything in the Constitution. So, let's see what else he's got here for us. Again, this examination of the data from 2013 to 2022, his findings attribute immigration to 40% of the real rent increase we have in this country. So maybe someone could share this with Zoran Mumdummy. Maybe he could figure this out as well. When he says we have to freeze rent. No, you have to get rid of the illegal aliens. You know, there's 40% of New York City are foreign-born. Again, it's not shocking. It's a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state. And these people vote, and they make policies, they elect people that continue to make these crappy policies, and wonder why we're losing the country. Now, again, a recent Federal Reserve working paper found that unauthorized immigrant worker flows caused 30% of the total increase in house prices and 20% of that increase in the rent. So again, these are just the illegal aliens section of this. This is unbelievable. And again, what's the answer to this problem? You have to get rid of people that are here illegally. Absolutely 100%. There's no other way you can go about doing this. Because what else do you have? You have nothing. You have nothing here. And again, so the way we have to go about this, number one, you have to make it very difficult for, again, illegal aliens to get housing, get access to these things. They should not be able to apply for these things. Again, they don't have the proper documentation to even be in this country. So how are they getting jobs? How are they getting automobiles? How are they getting work? I mean, again, we have to ask all these questions. Again, they're breaking the system. And some of these employers are doing the exact same thing. But I find it funny, and it says here too, in case you're wondering, okay, well, hey, Gerace, that's just in LA, right? LA's got the problem, but I'm over here in Ventura County, which is to the northwest of Los Angeles, going up the coast. He also talks about what's called the spillover effect here. And what that means, the effect means, for instance, a simultaneous 1% point increase in immigration in all of these associated areas, like, for example, LA County, account for an average increase in native rents of 1.46%. So every 1 percentage increase point of any type of immigration, both legal and illegal, will allow for a 1.46% rise in your rent. Now, he also goes on to say, along with a 0.65 percentage point increase in the share of natives who are burdened by higher rents and income ratios. Now, what the spillover effect says, this is what it says here. If you're in a county like LA, okay, and the rents are very high, that's going to spill over to the adjacent counties. Ventura, Orange County of the South, of course, they're from there, San Diego County. Again, it works that way because, again, you're next to it. So, again, if the rents are going up in one county, it's likely that the effect is going to hit the adjacent county. So their rents go up, even though maybe the immigrant populations are much lower. Again, you have to think about supply and demand in this as well. So I find this all very disgusting that we're, again, allowing this to take place. And we allow people to stay here now. And now we're going to be allowing children of illegal aliens to stay in this country and call them citizens when they're clearly not. Again, I'm following the Constitution, not any other position. And might I add this too, by the way. This is, again, Trump not following through on a campaign promise, which he ought be. This comes out of Newsweek. Here it says, the Department of Homeland Security's Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen has said that migrants in the United States on temporary protected status, the TPS, will be offered a plane ticket and more than $2,000 if they self-deport. But then they just came out and said recently they can either do that or they can either apply for a permanent status. Again, they could fill out the forms, or we'll help you get back. So they have an option. Why do they have an option? They ruled in favor of the TPS, the Supreme Court did, finally. It said, hey, if you're here on the temporary protected status, you can be removed from the country when we decide you're going to be going home. Now we're saying you can apply for permanent status? What is this now? So we're going to keep the Haitians, the Syrians, the Afghanis, and anybody else that comes in on TPS? Where are our priorities? When you have an unemployment rate in this country, people that cannot get work, you don't bring in more people to the country. You certainly don't do that. There's no reason for it. And you're certainly not going to be bringing people from the third world and thinking that the country is going to become automatically better. It just isn't going to work. So again, I get the whole idea we'll bring you back, but why are we giving them money now? Where are we allocating this money from? Look at this. He added here, he said, we will actually give you a plane ticket plus $2,100 to help you reestablish yourself when you get there. That's not our problem. Folks, we are not the babysitter or the benefactor of the world. We cannot do this. Now, despite him going on and saying that the temporary status is not permanent status, again, why are they applying for this then? Why are they able to apply for permanent status? Send people back that don't belong here. You promised us mass deportations. You promised us you would get rid of especially the criminal aliens. That's great. Okay. Obviously, that should be the first people you get rid of. But you have to get rid of everybody. You have to make it so people say, it's just not worth it for me to go to the United States. It just isn't worth it for me to pay the Mexican drug cartels to coyote me into the country, to try and cross the Rio Grande to get into the United States, only to find out that I'm going to be sent back. So why would I spend thousands of dollars to try to get in a country where, hey, I'm going to get there. And by the way, when I try to go to work, I don't have the right identification. I don't have it. I just don't have the documentation to get to work. So what am I going to do? Like, I can try and work under the table. That's not going to work out well if we're cracking down on that as well. And how am I going to get housing? Again, all these things can be figured out. They can be solved, but we are not solving them, folks. And this is what Trump really should be focusing on, not fomenting more wars in the Middle East for Israel. Hate to tell it to you that way, but that's the way it is, unfortunately. So yeah, we've got about, 350,000 Haitians, 6,000 Syrians, again, which we're focusing on right now. Get people out of the country that don't belong here, that are not assimilating. And again, we can go with other nations as well, where we've done this too. Again, Afghanistan, Somalia, all these countries. We bring in people after we start bombing the countries. Get the hell out of these countries. That's my recommendation to President Trump. Let's do this. Again, we have to stop this. It's never going to work out for us. You're not making the country better by bringing people from the third world and saying, well, gee, look, we brought in 350,000 Haitians. Now their lives are better. Now everyone's lives are better. No, they're not. You're not solving the problem where the problem is, and that is in Haiti. That's the problem. And so, again, I say to you, we've got to stop this, folks. If we don't, again, what's our future look like? What are the demographic shifts in this country look like moving forward? Ask yourself that question as well. So we've got some problems on our hand, folks. Again, I don't know really what more to say about this, other than we've got to get these deportations rolling. We've got to do this. And stop incentivizing, stop giving money. If you're here illegally, you are sent back home. Your country of origin can figure it out when you get there. Okay? Repatriate them back to where they came from. That's my stance on this, and I stand by that. Oh, by the way, the Supreme Court, since we're talking about the Supreme Court here, I figured I'd go over this one. A little bit of a win today, I guess. So apparently they can figure out men who are pretending to be women shouldn't be in athletics, but they can't figure out people who are pretending to be citizens shouldn't be called citizens. I guess that goes for normalcy in the Supreme Court. I don't know what else I'd say about that. So at USA Today, it says here that the Supreme Court lets states ban transgender athletes from female sports, as they ought be. Now, that's why we have female sports. Now, the court said that bans on female transgender, which again is a made-up term, on these transgender athletes in West Virginia and Idaho do not violate the Constitution or the federal law barring sex discrimination in education because, again, they're males. They're not females. So this one should have been a slam dunk, and unfortunately, I believe it was a 6-3 decision because our highly qualified left-wing appointed justices can't seem to figure out what a woman is. Certainly not Ketanji Brown Jackson. Remember that? She was asked what a woman is. Well, I'm not a biologist. Are you an idiot? Yeah, you are. And so Justice Brett Kavanaugh said that schools may determine eligibility for women's and girls' sports based on biological sex. Again, that makes sense. Separate sports teams for biological males. And again, I don't know why we need to use the word biological. Male and female is biological. That's what it comes down to. We already got the scientific meaning of it. That's what a male is. You have the biology of the chromosomes that make you a male. And again, for female, that's why you're called a female. We don't have to say biological women or biological men. Male and female is all you need to do, folks. There is no other type of male. Male is what it is. You have the sex characteristics, you have the chromosomes, you have the makeup of what it means to be a male and a female. There's no in-between, all right? There is no changing it either. So I was happy to see there was some sanity still left in the Supreme Court today. Sadly, we missed it on the Birthright Citizenship case, unfortunately. And I think I have some audio from Raphael Warlock here. Let me see if I got it today. It looks like my audio's not playing for some great reason. I don't know why. Again, he's going and trying to back the LGBTQXYZWTUV group for some reason as a pastor. That's interesting, right? It's unbelievable. And as if to make matters worse, folks, let's talk about what's going on inside of Qatar today. This one's very important. I think we need to go over this today. We want to know where we stand on this. Again, this is the problem of our economic downfall and turmoil right now. So let's shift over to this topic. This comes from the Washington Times. And it says there will be no direct technical talks or meetings between Iranian and U.S. officials while both sides are in Doha, Qatar today. Now again, why is this? Well, because he's sending Witkoff and Kushner. Why isn't he sending Rubio or Vance? Why are we doing this? Again, they are not taking these two seriously. These are two unserious people. One of them is not even a government employee, and yet he's sending them to negotiate on behalf of the United States? Again, both who have strong ties to the state of Israel, and what the Iranians believe that they're going to be acting on the best interest of the United States? Really? It's not going to work. Certainly not. Qatari Foreign Minister spokesperson Al Ansari said in a statement that President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, the real estate crew, Curly and Moe, will be instead meeting with mediators to discuss negotiations. Again, why are they involved in this? Where is Vance? Where is Rubio? Where are any of our real negotiators? We're not negotiating a real estate advancement here. What is going on here? Have these two ever negotiated anything on behalf of the United States and succeeded? The answer is no. So why are we trying this yet again? And the fact that we're sending them lets the Iranian know we're not serious about this. I think that's the part that gets me the most. And folks, again, as long as this is taking place, as long as we're going in this back and forth as to what the memorandum of understanding really means, I believe we're trying to figure out now what is taking place in the Strait of Hormuz, which, again, yesterday I've explained to you in great detail that, yes, Iran and the Omanis can absolutely 100% create a toll system if they want after these 60 days of the signing of this memorandum of understanding. But also, they would make all the arrangements inside of the Persian Gulf, again, who's transiting the strait. It was in the text. So, again, why is Trump shocked about this? When the IRGC says all ships transiting must work and coordinate with us first, that means you work and coordinate with them first before you transit, and then you were able to do so. So this MV Ever Lovely decided, with the help of the United States, to say, we're not going to do that. And then they got a drone strike on the starboard side of the ship. So again, it's not shocking. They are still controlling the strait, but they're allowing people to move through the strait right now. But you have to still coordinate with them, with the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, right? That's exactly what they're talking about here. So you're able to get through without using the fee system. Okay, that's fine. But you still have to coordinate with them because this is going to be the future of the Persian Gulf. That's what a lot of people don't understand. This is the future of the Persian Gulf. And you can have Mike Waltz, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump say, no, there's not going to be a toll system. Yeah, there is. That is going to be the future of the Persian Gulf. And by the way, the Omanis are on board with this as well. Why wouldn't they be? Seriously, so what? You're going to have one side create tolls and the other side is not going to do it? Of course you would. They've already met many times before, and they've already said, despite what Walt said on Sunday with Shannon Bream, that they're not doing that. They are going to be doing that. And the Omanis are on board with it. And they're going to make a lot of money off this, too. And notice this wasn't there prior to the start of the war. So look what we gave the Iranians. We gave them leverage to create a toll system, which is going to cause them lots of wealth in the future, once this is all over with. Yep, there we go, folks. And by the way, Mr. Baghai, Ismail Baghai, who's the Iranian foreign minister spokesman, said that the Iranian officials will also be discussing the status of $6 billion of frozen Iranian assets held in Qatar. And I think that will be, obviously, one of these steps as well, that they get their frozen assets back as well. Again, we're not in peace yet. We're not even negotiating peace. We're working out the memorandum of understanding. This is where we go to get the peace. So in other words, you give us our money back. You move your naval blockade. You know, we talk about these ships moving through the Persian Gulf. Most of those ships are Iranian ships, by the way. None of them are Israeli. None of them are certainly going to Europe or the United States, which again is a very, very big problem. So there we go on that one. Certainly nothing that's positive here. Nothing yet is positive. The Iranians are making way with, again, their agreements. These are their terms. So Trump can say, yeah, we've won. We're getting so many things back. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. Well, again, that hasn't even been talked about yet. They're not even discussing that with the United States yet. Now, again, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't come to that. Certainly the information that I've received has suggested if things don't go in favor of what the Iranians want, that they can have that. They will pursue a nuclear weapon, which, I hope does not happen. I hope we can come to terms with them. Realize that, yes, they have won the war. Trump can sell to the American people whatever he wants. Yeah, we won the war. Great. Look, and I got the Strait opened up again. Yeah, it was opened up before we invaded on February 28th. So what are we getting from this? What was the point of all this? 3 months of a strait being closed down. 90% of the overall traffic is down. Wasn't there? We have oil refineries, liquefied natural gas refineries hit. They're probably going to take months, if not at least a year, to get back up and running properly again. We've got the world's helium supply, 44% not moving. Aluminum, sulfur, urea. I mean, all these things that should be utilized by the globe are not being utilized. And it's going to cause a bit of an economic downfall, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to be very clear with you. We're not getting the proper amount of heavy crude into the United States because we don't have it. Despite us drilling lots of oil every single day, we don't have that level of heavy crude oil in the country. We've got to get it from someplace else. Where does it come from? Venezuela is one country. They don't certainly produce as much as the OPEC nations, though. The Persian Gulf, Russia, we're not getting it. The ships are not arriving in the United States. So yeah, we may get some Venezuelan crude oil. That crude oil takes lots of refining to get done. It costs more to do so. And we're simply not getting millions of barrels of oil. So while Trump comes out and says, hey, we're getting millions of barrels of oil coming through the strait. Now, again, even if that was true, it's Iranian oil that's leaving. Oh, we've never seen 19 million barrels. Yeah, we have. We've actually seen more than that leave the strait. Even if those ships were carrying 19 million barrels, which, again, I don't know that they are. They're not coming to the U.S., though, I can tell you that much. And that's what's creating such a bigger problem. We need to get the ships coming to the U.S. very, very quickly, and they're simply just not doing that. Okay, so there we are. So the strait's open one day, it's closed one day. We'll see what takes place. Right now, we're not firing on each other, which is great. I haven't heard anything today about Hezbollah and Israel fighting against one another today. So I guess that's a step in the right direction, even though we know those are all going to be falling apart. I just pray this isn't going to turn into a hot war like we had seen in March. So let's pray, folks, that we can get this. But again, I always tell you, I'm not holding my breath on this one. All right, let's go on. So that's our little update on what's happening in Iran. Let's not waste time. Let's move on to something else that's, again, very, very pressing, as we have about 10 minutes remaining in today's broadcast. This comes from the Telegraph, and it talks about the AI boom risks of the global financial crash. This is what central bankers are saying, not Marco Gervais, even though I've been telling you this for quite some time now. Why? Because I go and I get the information. You're not hearing this on the mainstream media. But what's taking place is what I've feared so much, and that is that we're in an AI bubble. Now, the Bank of International Settlements said on Sunday that the excessive spending on new AI data centers and opaque transactions risked a financial meltdown similar to the global credit crunch nearly 2 decades ago. Now, again, the Bank of International Settlements, said that there was a growing peril in financial markets from the complex web of financial ties between AI giants, and the data center buildings are unraveling. So what are they talking about? In other words, we're putting all these investments in. All these investments are coming in. Everyone thinks it's great. Oh, look at the company's valuations are going up. This is great. But what are they actually producing? By the way, what can you produce when you don't have the proper helium, which is necessary for computer chips, semiconductors, all the hardware that goes into your AI systems? We need that helium, and we're not getting it. So what are we going to do when we don't have that? We're certainly not going to be billed. And that becomes a major problem. Now, the financial stability could be at risk in the event of an AI bust. That's what the Bank of International Settlements is saying, and I agree with them 100%, because real economists have been predicting this for quite some time. Now, they're talking about it equating to that of the 2008 crisis. Some are saying it could be even worse than that. And again, this could leave the sector certainly more vulnerable if the AI companies underdeliver, which again is apparent right now. That's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing that take place right now. I know in some cases, if you look at Oracle, they just laid off several thousands of their employees. Larry Ellison is probably very happy about that because they're switching over to AI. But that's one company. We're talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of these AI-based companies utilizing these systems. So again, while DC is bullish on what's taking place with AI, they're propping up the markets and they're propping up these valuations. But what are they actually producing? That's the question you have to ask yourself. What are we actually producing with these AI companies? Are we producing more revenue in the United States? Is our GDP growing up? It doesn't seem like that. And that becomes a problem for investors. If they see they've invested so much, and by the way, nothing is coming from that, then people start to pull their money out. So the question you also have to ask yourself is, where's the money coming from? We look at these big tech groups like OpenAI, NVIDIA, for instance. They have turned to complex financial transactions to fund these AI developments, with bot developers often receiving loans from chip makers to buy the chip makers' microchips. So in other words, what are they talking about? Shadow banks, right? These private credit funds. And where are these credit funds coming from? They're coming from investment bankers. Think BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, those types of companies that, again, own a plethora of the wealth in the United States. That's where it's coming from. Now, the shadow banking industry is where these companies would then borrow from funds and private equity houses rather than banks. So they circumvent the banking system. That's how it works. And as a result of it, it expands rapidly in recent years as regulators around the world have tightened the rules governing mainstream banking. So again, they're going through and they're finding new ways in order to get the money for this. And as a result of that, are they making good on their commitments? So in other words, where is the progress? Where is the actual wealth being created with these companies? Again, I can't seem to find it in any one of these situations in which we talk about. Now, the bank noted that where parallels were between the AI infrastructure surge to the dot-com boom bust, remember all that in the late 1990s, as well as similarities between the British railway mania in the 1840s or the roaring 20s before the Great Depression. So this is the level of which we're finding ourselves in now. And again, the scale and pace of the current AI investment boom, accompanied by expectations of large productivity payoffs bear resemblance to the precedents highlighting the potential downside risks in the near term. Again, if you look at the AI and the Asian stocks linked to the AI boom have swung wildly in recent days amid the fears that the tech rally could come to a grinding halt. So while right now these stocks seem to be doing well, they seem to be doing better, they seem to be pushing up because, again, when the government's bullish on it, when the government's investing in it, or when these investment bankers are investing in this, things look good, so people buy. People want to get in. They want to get in so they can make a profit on this, and they see it going up, up, up. But what happens when they sell? That's going to be, dropping the bottom out very soon, I'd have to say. But again, global tech stocks plunged last Friday after Apple said that it would increase prices because of higher microchip costs. Why is there higher microchip costs? Because of the war in Iran. Because they're not getting the right raw materials. Again, the helium that's necessary for these microchips to work, to function, they're not getting it. And again, you're seeing the NASDAQ even drop a couple of percentage points as well. And this is just not indicative of just the United States, but also South Korea's blue chip index. I mean, look at this. This is heavily tied to the fortunes of the country's AI chip businesses, has also seen swings of more than 10 percentage points in a single day. I mean, this is rough, folks. This is what we're talking about. Bottlenecking. We talk about that with the oil. Now we're seeing the bottlenecking of the data center construction, or a shortage of chip supplies that could really threaten this AI boom that we seem to find ourselves in. And by the way, the AI giants are already trying to ration access to their most powerful tools at peak times because of the lack of capacity. So again, I say this to you because this is the reality, folks. This is where we are. This is what's been propping up the stock market throughout this entire war. We said, oh, wow, the Dow's never been so well. Oh, we've never seen the S&P 500 like this. Well, again, because a lot of these companies are within the top marginal stocks. And as a result of it, people think, wow, everything's booming. Look at what is happening at the stock market. But you've got to understand something. What happens on Wall Street does not always equate to what's taking place on Main Street. They're two totally different things. Even the Financial Times reported on Sunday that Google had capped Meta's use of the search giant's Gemini AI because it was struggling to meet the Facebook owners' demands. So now you have a series of trillions of dollars floating that are also testing the appetite of investors for a lot of these high-risk bets. So what happens when they pull their money out? Seriously, what happens when they start pulling their money out? Everything's going to go bottom up, folks. That's what's going to be the end result of this. And by the way, the Bank of International Settlements also warned that with near record levels of public debt, many countries have failed to secure the public finances during periods of economic growth. Instead, they were spending beyond their means, leaving them vulnerable. Yeah. By the way, SpaceX shares 2, which just released, they valuated that at $2 billion, and the shares have plummeted some 25% from their peak. Yeah. Not good, folks. Not good. Okay, let's move on. We got about 2 minutes remaining in the program. Let me go over these two very, very quickly. This one's from Just the News. And by the way, I have to shake my head with this. It's Independence Day this Saturday, obviously the 250th birthday of our nation. And this is coming out of California. Of course it comes out of California. It said 3 homeowners in San Marcos, California, this is out of San Diego County, said that their homeowners association warned them that they could face $100 fines if they continue flying American flags outside of their homes. Can you believe this nonsense? A homeowners association in Southern California have outraged these families now on Monday after the local homeowners association demanded that they take down their American flags as America's nationwide prepare to celebrate the nation's 250th birthday. Can you imagine this? Independence Day this week. You're flying the American flag in your home, and the homeowners in San Marcos now are miffed about this, and I don't blame them. It's so ridiculous. And by the way, just really quickly, just so we understand this, these homeowners associations have no right to do this, by the way. They have no right whatsoever, by the way. We have things, for example, even in California, Civil Code 4705 says that it explicitly protects your right to display the American flag at your home. So that means any association may not prohibit the display of the flag of the United States. Can you believe this? Our own nation's flag cannot be flown at your house? Tell these people to go to hell. Absolutely 100%. By the way, The Freedom to Display the American Flag Act of 2005, prohibits the homeowners associations, condos, and landlords from restricting flag displays on residential property. So again, if you have a landlord telling you to take your flag down, tell them to go to hell. But say it in a nice way so you don't get kicked out of your home. And by the way, too, this comes from the Tampa Bay Times. It's going to get hot this week, folks. Certainly tomorrow and Thursday, we're going to see peaks, and it's going to be over 100 degrees with humidity, especially in the American Southwest and the Eastern Seaboard in many different states. And it's going to be hot all over. Again, we're at the brink of summer right now. And unfortunately, a young 18-month-old baby was left in a car. And I'm not going to go into the details about this. This is certainly negligent on the fathers who left the child in the car. But the child was found to have died after being in the car for quite some time. And authorities were called to the scene, and the child had been found dead, sadly enough. Don't leave your children in a hot car. Don't leave your pets in a hot car right now, folks. You got to get air, especially, again, if you're in one of these states where it's 104 degrees today. So, again, I don't think I need to tell you all this, but you got to stay hydrated. It's very, very important. We need to do this. So please make sure you're staying hydrated. Please make sure, by any means, that you are getting your pets hydrated, your children especially as they're outside playing. Make sure they're staying cool. Make sure they're getting some shade from time to time. It's very, very important, folks, because this is the time of year where a lot of these bad incidents happen. So stay hydrated, stay in the shade, get in cool environments if you can. Absolutely, 100%, especially if you're working outside. Stay hydrated. All right, folks, that will conclude today's show. Thank you again for being here as always, and thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for making this first year very, very possible, and I appreciate you so much. Make sure you're staying prepped with food, water, medicine, fuel, anything to be self-sufficient. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news as always. Until next time, be good, stay busy. God bless.